Hey guys, if any of you came from the previous workshop with Raphael explaining about chain hook and rune hook, well, this is a great segue because in this presentation, I'll be showing how you can use those dev tools that are powering what I'm going to be showing you today with the Runes API. My name is Eric. I am a developer advocate at Hiro, and my role is to help support and empower developers and also provide a lot of good educational content for new developers as well. So to keep things simple, this is the agenda for today. Um, I think this presentation will be great for beginners because it will teach them how they can use the Runes API in creating a simple web app, such as a Runes dashboard that I'll showcase later. But to piggyback off of the previous presentation about chain hook and rune hook, um, and also to cover some bases in case if there's any beginners watching this, what are runes? I'll go over what runes are and give like a high level explanation of them. What are the Heroes Runes API endpoints? This is the API that's being powered by the rune hook that's created and maintained by Raphael. And we'll be using this in our demonstration later on. And finally, how you can use the runes API endpoints. This is where I'll be showing you how you can use them with the demonstration of my simple dashboard app. So the first question is, what are runes? So runes, it is a um, native fungible token protocol on Bitcoin. Essentially, it allows developers and users to etch, mint, and transfer Bitcoin native digital commodities. So this is similar to like your ERC20 tokens on Ethereum or even SIP10 tokens on Stacks. They are created by Casey Rodmore, which is the same creator of Bitcoin Ordinal. So there's some relevance there. Um, they are a more efficient design compared to BRC20 tokens, which is also another fungible token protocol that's using Bitcoin as well. And it's important to note that the way runes works is through runestones, which are messages that are embedded in Bitcoin transactions that communicate what a rune is doing. So runestones, they are specifically embedded in a Bitcoin transaction within the op return field. And in that op return field is where they will communicate if they want to etch a new rune, mint a rune, or transfer a rune. And it's important to note that these runestone messages that are in Bitcoin transactions are not read at all by the Bitcoin core node. Bitcoin nodes don't care about these messages. They don't interpret or process these messages. And this is where DevTools such as the Runehook comes into play. So Runehook is an indexer that is the backbone of the Runes API. Runehook is the software that is reading and looking out for these messages in the op return field of a Bitcoin transaction. It's then processing these messages and then storing them on a database that is readily available with our Runes API endpoints. So the Runes API endpoints, it offers an on-chain data for Bitcoin runes in a familiar REST interface. So you can fetch information such as the metadata for an etching or the holders of a particular runes or runes activity for your address or for somebody else's address. So it's very flexible. You can receive and fetch a lot of different data points on the runes activity on chain. And with that, you can use that within your own web application too. So in a minute, I'll show you the web application that I built that I'll be showcasing. And then afterwards, I'll give some sample suggestions of different types of apps that you can build as well. So let's take a look at a Runes dashboard app. This is the application that I built that I mentioned to you a second ago. It is a simple app that's using these tools used over here, using Next.js because Next.js is a very popular React framework, and there's some things that I like about it, such as being able to customize your own route segments easily. It also enables you to intertwine client components and server components, so it's very dev friendly for a lot of beginner devs. The Runes API, of course, this is what's going to power and give information to our application. The Leather Wallet. The Leather Wallet is a popular Bitcoin Web3 wallet out there. We'll be using this to receive our Bitcoin address so that we can use that Bitcoin address and see what type of runes activity is going on with my address. We'll also be using Stacks Connect, which is a JavaScript library, part of the Stacks.js monorepo. Stacks Connect is the piece that enables our front-end application to communicate with your Bitcoin Web3 wallet extension. So we'll be using that to connect with our Leather wallet to our application. And the last tool that I'm using is ShadCN UI. This is kind of arbitrary. You can use any UI component library out there. ShadCN is a really popular one, and a lot of their UI components are really easy to use, and they look really good. These are a list of the API endpoints that I'm using for my application. So we're going to be receiving information about the runes that I own, the activity that's pertaining to the runes that I own, any activity going on in the most recent block, um, retrieving the status of the API itself, and also receiving and fetching the etching information for any of the runes that I own. There's a link right here in this slide that can take you to our documentation where you can learn and see the other API endpoints related to runes. It's really useful and easy to use. I'll pull it up here in a second just so I can kind of walk you through on how you can use our docs when using the Runes API. Okay, so yep, right here in our documentation on the Bitcoin section, you can find the Runes API overview. From here, you can see all the other endpoints that are available for you to use in your application. So for example, get activity for a block. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, so in any of these pages over here, it'll give more information about the API endpoint itself. It'll give the actual URL path for that API endpoint if you want to use it on in your terminal or in a JavaScript file. And also some of the parameters that you'll be needing to pass in, such as, well, for this one, you need to pass in the block number, or you can set your query parameters to paginate through the list of API data points. And at the bottom right here, you can actually play around with our integrated API playground within the docs. You can specify for this one the block height, and the result will be shown below over here. So let's, for example, let's put in the block height of 700,000. Let's see what shows up. Yep. So, well, this might be yeah. So Bruins actually started after block 700,000. So let's try with maybe 840,001. Yep. And then it'll give you the list of all the runes activity for that block that I specified. So yeah, you can come to these docs whenever you want to check out how to use the Runes API. And up next, we will go to the actual project files for my demonstration of the Runes dashboard app. Okay, so for now, just ignore the files that I have open on the right side. In the Explore section, This is just your basic Next.js project setup over here. A lot of these files come default when you create your own Next.js project. All of the code and the components and the front end code is all living in this source file. In your app, in my app folder is where I list out a lot of the route segments, so such as the dashboard and the different route segments for activity, balances, block activity. In the components folder is mostly just UI and front end code for styling. And in my library folder is where I have this data.ts file, which is actually being used for fetching and processing a lot of the API endpoint results that are returned back to me. And I'm processing that and then rendering it on the front end. So I can go through these three files that I have up here, but first I want to give just a little demo of the actual application. So I'll go ahead and start my local server. Okay. So yeah, this is the application. This is the landing page. Stacks Connect is being used for this Connect Wallet button. At the moment, my wallet is already connected, but if not, you would need to connect to your Leather wallet over here. As you can see, my wallet is already opened and I already have some runes in my wallet, which is denoted by these runes icons. So we're going to be using Stacks Connect to retrieve that information on my runes wallet into my application. So when we go and navigate towards the dashboard, is where you'll see all of the information and data points being displayed. So the way I have this dashboard kind of set up is um, it's actually up to you as to how you want to set it up. You can use it to personalize the way you want to display your runes or fetch more information about other runes. But for now, I have it set up in, you could say, 4 different quadrants using 4 different UI components. So on the top right, I am displaying my top 3 runes that I own. On the top left over here, under your runes activity, is where I'm displaying the most recent runes activity pertaining to the runes that I own, and showing the top 3 based on the block height, the most recent block height. The bottom component over here is showing the most recent activity from the most recent confirmed Bitcoin block. And on the bottom left over here is just showing what I called the featured runes, which is the most active runes in the most recent Bitcoin block. So this can kind of tell me information about, what's trending in the most recent block and maybe what is a runes that I should be looking out for. But yeah, in each one of these cards, it's pretty interactive. Um, for example, in this card, in my runes balances, I can click on view more and it'll take me to a separate table listing out all the runes that I own. There's certain actions in each list item that I can take, such as copying the runes ID and then using that and searching it on another website. Or I can click into view etching, which will take me to a separate website that will show more information about that runes itself. For example, for the featured runes card over here on the bottom left, right, I'm positioning this as what is a trending hot runes in the most recent Bitcoin block. From here, I can see that it is the runes called His Name is Arlo, the current supply. And also I can click into this view market, which will take me to an external link showing me the market activity for that runes itself on Magic Eden. So yeah, it's very customizable to the way how you maybe would want to display your runes or other people's runes. It's very simple. The way I've used the runes API and displaying it on the front end. So if we go back to the code, 3 files that I want to kind of summarize for you just to kind of see how I put it all together. This file over here, connect wallet. This is where I'm actually using Stacks Connect to connect my application to my Leather wallet. So I'm just importing Stacks Connect at the top over here. And I am using the authenticate method from the Stacks Connect library. The authenticate method will be the method that will authenticate with your Leather wallet and then store user session information in your local storage. And then on finish, after authenticating, it's going to then receive the Bitcoin address, specifically the Bitcoin mainnet address, and specifically the Taproot address, because Leather, along with other Bitcoin wallets, use the Taproot address for Rune's activity. But from what I understand as well is that you can use essentially any Bitcoin address for interacting with runes, but it's pretty common to see Taproot addresses when interacting with runes. And then we'll be using this user address string, and we'll be using it in the path parameter or the query parameter of our route segments, which will enable different pages and routes to receive that address. In this page.tsx file, this is just the main file that's being displayed on the dashboard page. So at the top on line 13 is where I am calling this retrieve all data function. It's just a helper function for me to call all the different helper functions which pertain to different API endpoints. It's then returning that to me in a object, and then I'm taking that object and destructuring it on line 31. And each of these return values from this object, I'm passing it into its designated card or UI component. So each of the 4 different components has its own React component that I've set up. So I'm passing these values as props into these components along with the user address as well. And finally, the meat of the actual application is this data.ts file, which is where I'm actually calling the API endpoints. So there are about 5 different helper functions. Each one is having its own duty of calling one API endpoint. And then from each, after it's fetching the information from the endpoint, it's processing that data and then returning back a custom type that I've set up. So I have a separate types file over here, which will allow me to kind of work with the results and data that's being returned back a lot easier. At the moment, there is no client-side library for you to use when working with the Runes API. So I kind of had to customize types based on the information that I want to show on the front end. But of course, you can customize it to however you want to. And so if we just dig into one of these functions over here, let's take get address balances, for example. At the top from line 16 and 22, I am using the native fetch function to hit the API endpoint and get the information from this endpoint back into a response. I'm then waiting for the JSON representation of that response. And within the data variable, there is also a results property, which will actually show the results being received back. If there's nothing in that results, then I'm just going to return an empty array. And if there is where I want to do more processing on that data. So certain things, certain information and results that are being returned back from the API endpoints, maybe don't have something that I want to show. So for example, over here in line 31, I'm actually using a different helper function to receive, to retrieve the symbol for a particular runes because this API endpoint doesn't have that symbol property in the results. So there's some interweaving of the functions that I have set up. But like I said before, this is just totally up to personal preference as to what kind of data that I want to display on the front end. But yeah, after also receiving this symbol, I'm adding that to a final object, which I'm then returning. And then on line 37, I'm just awaiting all the promises from the iteration of the map method. And then I'm sorting those arrays in descending order by balance. And then I'm returning it to the front end. So this returned object is also being returned over here, which is then being passed in as a prop to the balances card. And the other helper functions, each one pertaining to its own API endpoint that it's handling, it's more or less doing the same thing. It's fetching the um, required API endpoint that it wants to. It's then receiving that data back and then iterating through a map if it needs to sort it in a certain manner or receive more information from a different API endpoint. I mean, there's many ways where you can set up your API endpoints here. I know Next.js does have a special folder and file setup where you can set up your API endpoints that way. But in this manner right here, I'm doing all the fetching and processing within these functions. And then, yeah, so a lot of the information is just being received back on the dashboard page, which is then being passed in to each individual UI component, which is its own separate card on the dashboard. So yeah, that is the gist of the dashboard application that I want to demonstrate today. If you want more information about this app as well, you can head to the repo for this, which is shared over here. I can drop this as a link in the Discord chat as well. It's really simple to use. It's great for beginners to learn how to use API endpoints for a simple React application. Even at the bottom of this repo, if you're interested, you can go through some of the app enhancements and suggestions that I listed out here, such as being able to have connection compatibility with other Bitcoin wallets besides Lether Wallet. You can implement also the pagination of the API endpoints, or even display market price of the different runes that are in your wallet. And as well, if you come to our YouTube channel, um, the Hero Systems YouTube channel, you can find the actual full tutorial video of this application where I walk you step by step from scratch on how to build this application from end to end. And just to wrap it up here, hopefully you find that kind of interesting. Maybe it can give you some ideas as to what you can do with the Runes API, since Runes has been a hot topic this year ever since its launch back in April. Other ideas that you can take is you can also build like a similar ecosystem visualizer for top holders of a particular rune, or what has been transferred the most in the most recent block, for example. Or what's unique as well is maybe you can create a Stacks NFT based on the number of unique rune holdings for a wallet or an address, um, intertwining runes and stacks together. So that'll be a cool idea if anyone has a taste for building something like that. But yeah, that was the presentation today. Hopefully you took away some interesting things from this talk. And yeah, please do check out the app on the GitHub as well. And I would love to see if you guys would be interested in forking it and kind of adding those enhancements or suggestions to it. Um, Again, do check out the RuneHook repo as well if you want to learn more about how RuneHook is powering the API endpoints. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find other information and tutorials about runes or Bitcoin or stacks. So that is it. Thank you.